Welcome to Community Connections. I'm Nicole Snyder, Coordinator of Communications and Media Partnerships for Clay County District Schools. This month, we are talking about safety and security, including the district's new police department. On the show today, we have a familiar face, Superintendent of Schools, Addison Davis, Chief of Police, Kenneth Wagner, and Assistant Superintendent of Operations, Dr. Michael Kemp. So we have a lot to cover today. Let's get straight to it. Superintendent Davis, can you just catch us up on what's happening with the police department since it was voted on in February?
Yeah, so, openly in December, the school board was trying to be proactive to identify what we could do from a district level, how we would spend the millage money that the community so gracefully extended to our school district to continue to protect safety and security within our school district. In that time, they explicitly asked me for multiple facets and dimensions and options for me and my team to put together in order to present about how we would spend the money related to guardians, how we would spend the money related to local law enforcement agencies, and what we would do with hardening that project. So after December and January, me and my team worked collectively to put together 5 options. And of those 5 options, we built a comparison analysis financially and also through our workforce to be inclusive models of the school district leading the police department with variations of having the sheriff's office, town of Orange Park, and Green Cove inclusive of those as well in order to present so the school board can make an informed decision. Coming to January 29th, we had a workshop. In those workshops, my staff presented to the school board. And the next day, the school board put it on the agenda to have a greater discussion at the school board meeting in February. And from that, the school board has elected to move with Part B and Plan B, which is an implementation of the Clay County School District launching and implementing our own police department at the elementary level and also at the secondary level, while continue to have interlocal agreements with the town of Orange Park and Green Cove Police Department. I will openly say that while some decisions we make as leaders sometimes aren't as popular, but the school district and the school board didn't make this decision in a split second. They looked at all of the analytics behind it, looked at all the benefits, the pros and the cons, and really came to a solution where they believe that we can continue to offer a model that can continue to protect our students, at the same time protect the working conditions of our adults.
Yeah, so a huge decision for the school board, and also another huge decision is the man standing right next to you, Police Chief Kenneth Wagner. Can you tell us a little bit about why you chose him, why you think he's the right person for this top position?
At the end of the day, when the school board elected to make this decision, I went immediately to try to find the right person to lead this work. And we knew that it had to be someone that had a great history, a rich history within Clay County, someone that is really solid in law enforcement, and someone that truly understood our community and our schools as well. And I will say that after all the applicational process and interview process, this was the right man for the job. He brings over 20 years of law enforcement to our school district, 1,400 hours of explicit training related to protecting our children and our community. He's a graduate of the FBI Academy, and at the same time, he was the individual that has led all of the work, 7 or 8 years, for Clay County District Schools related to the Resource Officer Project. And this hire has Sheriff Daniels' fingerprints all over it, because when Sheriff Daniels came in the same time I came in, he saw and approved that this individual was the right man to lead the work. And we only evolve as related to how well our next hire is, and this individual has really allowed us to move in the right direction and have the right leader to protect our students.
So I know you're just chomping at the bit to get your airtime. Tell us about your new position and the transition to it, and just what you've experienced so far.
So far, it's been a relatively smooth transition. We have a lot of applicants. Right now, we have a little over 100 applicants, and I'm constantly vetting them. And as of today, I have about 20 people that are highly qualified, with probably on the average about 22 years law enforcement experience. A lot that come from around Northeast Florida, from Central Florida, and even as far away as Washington, D.C., for officers that are coming down to raise their families and continue serving this community, because they know the benefit of this community that they can serve and live. And all of them are highly dedicated, and each of us have a strong conversation about the dedication to this community, up to including that they would lay their lives on the line in order to protect our students, our faculty, and our community members while they're in the performance of their duties at schools.
Yeah, and can you tell us a little bit about the process for those school resource officers applying? What kind of certifications do they need to have? What kind of background checks do they go through, and some training that they're going to have to go through this summer?
A very good question. Each of these officers, it's a typical law enforcement type application. They put in, and of course, they have to have 2 years law enforcement experience prior to even reaching my desk. And it's a very strenuous vetting process that has a thorough background investigation, and we have FBI agents that are retired that are doing those background investigations to make sure that we have good qualified applicants, that what they say in their applications is what they've actually done. In addition to that, we have to find out if they're able to perform the task as a school resource officer. Do they have the tenacity in order to serve our community and with vigor and with integrity? Their training is going to consist of a myriad of things, because after Stoneman Douglas, we had to institute mental health training. So that's going to be one of our top priorities in dealing with and exercising those mentorships and recognizing students that may have some mental health issues, that we're properly vetted and that we have those skills in order to identify, refer for services, and reach out to our partners like Clay Behavioral, that we get either it's a family in need of services or a child in need of services. And then when it gets down to the law enforcement aspect of it, they're going to get vigorous training with regards to active assailant training, defensive tactics, de-escalation tactics, a myriad of things that we can go on, and we'll just improve it.
It sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. And I said openly, this is a tall order, but I continue to be amazed about this individual's ability to recruit first-round draft picks to this organization. We know openly, I've said this before, the Clay County Sheriff's Office has been a beautiful partner in our work. They will continue to be a beautiful partner. But as it relates to what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to do is make certain that we have a resource officer on every one of our campuses every single day, 100% of the time. And through this, they'll work to be in a well-organized department that's focused on visibility, that's focused on prevention, enforcement, and also engagement. So excited about this work and excited about what he brings to the table for Clay.
And we don't want to leave out Dr. Kemp down here. He's been a huge asset to this team, and also a trailblazer when it comes to getting this all together. And so can you just talk about your role in all of this and kind of what you've seen over the last couple of months?
Sure. From an operations perspective, when you think about the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act and what that requires, a lot of people think about the SRO, the armed officer in their school, but there's so much more to that. And we're looking at facilities hardening. There's the mental health component that is critical. But just from a facilities perspective, once we have the officers in our schools, our police department is stood up, we're taking a look at our facilities to make sure that we do the hardening projects necessary to ensure the best safety that we can. So when you think about our facilities, our average facility age is approaching 60 years old. We have the newest facility, Discovery Oaks, that's not even a year yet, but we have some that are approaching 100 years old. I think it's important for everybody to understand that our facilities weren't built for this level of threat assessment today. So Clay County has a challenge, and the challenge is we have a lot of work to do to get our facilities prepared for the projects that we need to harden it. Projects such as perimeter fencing, single point of entry, access controls. We're talking about additional camera surveillance, additional lockdown devices, alert systems, all those things that are required to keep our campuses as safe as we possibly can, and with the challenges that we face today.
And
I would like to add on to that is some of the applicants that we had are CEPTED, in which that is crime prevention through environmental design, and I would like to work collaboratively with Dr. Kemp and his team in order to make sure that what we do is that the hardening of these schools fall in line with some of those practitioners.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about the money that's needed to harden schools, but also a lot of money goes into putting up this police department. Can you talk about the financial aspect to standing up this police department and how that played a role in the decision?
Sure, and all of us can have this conversation at this table. Ultimately, if you go back to Clay County District Schools, you have the last time that we had resource officers in our senior and junior high schools was back in 2007, 2008. And due to finances, that wasn't carried upon, and we transitioned to 2009 to 2017, 18, where we only had resource officers at our high schools, and junior high schools didn't have coverage, and elementary in our school district has never had coverage. And in those years, we spent an average around $50,000 per officer to be able to implement that plan. It was last year when I brought the board to expand the Clay County Sheriff's Office within our schools because they do a beautiful job for us. And in that expansion, the cost actually it just went up. For 12 schools and 19 employees, you pay an average of $101,000 per officer, which ultimately around the state you see the averages between you see schools between paying $50,000 per officer up to around $65,000 to $67,000 officer. I've said openly is that I'm not trying to challenge anyone's numbers. If that's what it takes to implement this work, then there needs to be additional assistance, maybe from the BCC to the sheriff. But from our perspective, the school board really truly had to look at what the actual cost was and determine if the cost was reasonable or related to what we're trying to accomplish and affordable. Many thanks to the community members who extended the millage. That millage is going to allow us to stand up a resource officer in every one of our schools, which would be the first time in history in Clay County. This year, what we've done is we've placed resource officers in our junior high schools and our high schools, and we took on the Guardian program to hire school safety officer guardians to protect our elementary schools. What we'll do is, the initial cost was going to be around, closely around $6 million. And for us to do that a year ago, we just didn't have the money because categorical fundings didn't allow us to do so, because 80% of our budget is taken up by all of our employees. And I'm just not willing to go and make cuts for that project, hence the reason we found money to initiate the Guardian program. So as the $6 million comes into play, that's the first year, whether it's us or the Sheriff's Office or the Town of Orange Park or Green Cove, there's going to be capital costs to let that come to fruition the first year. However, you have to look at the reoccurring costs, and we have the opportunity to save up to $1.2 million a year by owning this process. So I think there's a lot of benefit, and $1.2 million is a lot of money when you're talking about resources for schools, resources for teachers, to address hardening of our structures, to address all of the safety projects that we need to do in order to make sure we have the safest environment. Anything from Kim?
Just to add that it's a collaborative effort between the police department, our Office of School Safety and Security, as well as facilities. So anytime you have limited funding and limited capacity to do things, it's imperative that we're fiscally responsible, because it's more than just putting an SRO in every school. I personally believe that that's a critical component to physical safety and security of the sites. But if we're going to make some great gains in this effort, it's going to be on the mental health and early identification and the social services that work early on to identify students, to create relationships with them from all facets. So when we're limited in funding, it's important that we're as fiscally responsible as we can to not only have the armed officer in every school, but also have the facilities hardened with such the need that I already described. And then you have the mental health component, which is really a great opportunity for us to move forward. One of the things we were looking at when we looked at all the options for this initiative was we wanted to follow the Orange County model. The Orange County model was we'd stand up a police department that would provide additional support to the interlocal agreements and their interlocal agencies, because quite honestly, SROs and schools can't always focus on everything. This gives us an opportunity to make sure that we use our dollars wisely and that we can spread it amongst the three-pronged approach that's necessary to identify, make sure our students and teachers are safe.
And one of the things I'll say, and I'll transition back to you, I'm sorry, is that I want the community to understand, ultimately, at the end of the day, my job is to be an instructional leader and to make sure that we have systems and processes every single day that, accelerate the learning opportunities for our children and prepare them to be successful. But at the same time, there's multiple facets as we understand that safety is one of our greatest priorities. And I have two daughters that attend Clay County District Schools, and as a leader and as a father, safety is one of my most sacred priorities. So when you look at this, if we had a perfect world, openly and honestly, I would love for the Town of Orange Park, the Green Cove, and the Sheriff's Office to be in every one of our schools. But to be honest with you, all the stars just didn't line up, and multiple attempts and opportunities were extended, and it just didn't work. So at the end of the day, my job was to go and seek and hire an individual that understood our community, understood our core values of our families, and understood the vision and mission of our work, and hence the reason bringing on this young man to make this happen. When we talk about the 1.2 potential savings, we also have a point where we will not only have a resource officer in every one of our schools, but we will have guardians as well. And then we saw in Parkland that Parkland did to a point where not just one officer is going to be able to address an active assailant. So having more than one individual on campuses will allow us to have a greater opportunity to address that undesired behavior.
Mhm. And moving forward this timeline, we know that this opening of school is just around the corner, so we have a lot of parents probably asking, how is this going to happen in the next couple of months so quickly? You guys have a great partner that's come on board. Can you talk about former Sheriff Rick Wiesler and his work with you guys?
Sure. Coming into this and understanding that through the board's direction that I was going to have to stand up this police department, not only seeking a chief of police that understood the mechanics and the work, but I had to go identify an individual that can give us 100% of his time that truly understood how to develop a budget, to make sure that we are building relationships with our interlocal agreements, to make certain that we understand hiring standards, to look at all the processes related to building a police department in an efficient, effective manner, and that's bringing on former Sheriff Rick Wiesler. And he is, I had a chance to meet with him, to talk about aspirations for building this, based on the decision of the school district. And he can give us all his efforts and energy, and he has, he's 12 years sheriff here, so he brings rich experiences and knowledge, and I'm excited that he's going to be able to help us, drive this work and continue. And I know that Chief Wagner was an instrumental part, working with Sheriff Wiesler, and he can talk a little bit too about who he is, what he brings to the table, and how it's just a plus for us.
My experience with this from the sheriff's office was that an integral part of a law enforcement agency's an internal affairs investigation. And that's basically receiving complaints or praise on officers and identifying should there be an allegation of misconduct. That was my role, and I was the only investigator with Clay County Sheriff's Office from 2003 to 2008. So that's a very strong integral part about maintaining transparency and an integrity of a law enforcement agency. In addition to that, Sheriff Wiesler was the sheriff who afforded me my first opportunity to start in the SRO program in our juniors and senior high schools. And at the time that I went into it, unfortunately, we had only SROs in the high schools. So I had a myriad of experience with him. He was a mentor to mine, and I'm very, very pleased that he is on board with us, and he's somebody I can reach out to at any time and call him. And because he is a mentor, he may not even charge the school district because it's a friendship of mine that I've had for many years, and he was my sheriff for 12 years. Sure.
And Dr. Kemp, from your side, you have a new face joining your department soon, next month. Can you talk about John Ward and his experience that he's going to also bring to this department?
Well, yeah, we're really excited about Mr. Ward coming on. He ran Clay County's emergency management. He's going to come over and take the place of Mr. Bruce Harpin, who earned his retirement. He deserved that. He did a great job for us. But he's going to come in and serve as our Director 1 in our Safety and Security Office. We're looking forward to what he can bring. It's like I said, it's a multi-pronged approach, and part of that is the processes that we have in place for safety and security, and all the drills, all the practice that we do with our principals, all the procedures that we have in place. So to have someone like Mr. Ward coming in with his experience running emergency management with the entire county, it's just going to be a big benefit to Clay County District Schools as we welcome him, and I'm really looking forward to his vision for the future as far as ensuring that our school-based administration teachers are ready to protect the schools.
And I would like to add on to that it's going to be a collaborative effort with the safety of the school district under Mr. Ward, as well as the police department. And one of my first round draft picks already was one of the officers that was working for the sheriff's office who actually conducted all those drills and did those site safety security measures, and he is coming on board as one of the lieutenants. So it's going to be an exciting time. It's going to be, we're going to usher in a new era for the district schools with a brand new police department that a lot of individuals that are absolutely willing to serve and stepping up to the plate.
There's great things ahead. Great things ahead for Clay County.
And so a lot of parents and community members have attended Listen and Learn meetings this month across the county that you, Superintendent, held along with Police Chief Wagner, and Dr. Kemp's been a part of that too. Can you just talk about the results from those meetings? What is the feedback? What are people concerned about?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is that when we come into the Listen and Learns, we have community members just want to know the facts, and a lot of misinformation, inaccurate information. And one of the biggest things of concern is that that these individuals weren't going to be highly certificated and have the same credentials as any police law enforcement agency throughout the state. And we were able to address that and let them know that we are seeking individuals who are not fresh out of academy but have been in law enforcement for a minimum of 2 years. In addition to that, they just want to make certain that the community wants to make certain that these individuals truly don't have, not only have the skill set to enforce the law, but they really have the will set to be in K-12 education. So that's one of the priorities we're actually seeking with our applicants. Have they been in K-12 education or post-secondary education? And can they build the relationships necessary, not only with our staff, but our children as well, and be able to help and assist? I would tell you, it's nothing but positive feedback after our presentation because they actually see the rationale behind the school district decision and how we will stand up in an effective and efficient, well-organized department.
Anything else?
But one of the outcomes for me when I see individuals come into the listen and learn, so they come in with seem to be one frame of reference, and it's really the focus about the police officers in the schools. But it's real satisfying to see that they get the correct information. They find out that it's really more than that. It's really about facilities hardening, everything we're trying to do from that perspective, as well as one of the most critical components, and that's the mental health aspect. And so it's just so much more. Even though it's a critical part to have the officer in the school, it's just so much more than that as far as our obligations and requirements for Marjorie Stoneman.
Yeah, one parent came in, I think last, one of these sessions and said, Mr. Davis, I was coming in not on your team with this, but after the listen and learn with accurate information, you're now on probation with me. So we're moving individuals in the right direction, and the biggest thing is for us to work collectively with every division with this organization, also with the interlocals, and make certain that we have the singular goal of protecting our children, whether you are the Clay County Sheriff's Office, Town of Orange Park, Green Cove Police Department, School District Police Department. We're all here for the same things, and that's just to work to protect our community. And this work will not be done in isolation. And as Dr. Kim said, it's more than just enforcement. It's about mental health. It's about behaviors, early warning indicators, and ultimately building relationships and trust within the community and within our schools.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about trust. To wrap up, can you talk about how you're going to be transparent through this process? I know we've been posting a lot of stuff to social media. You've done these community meetings. And continue to post to our website. Talk about your dedication to that.
So at the end of the day, we want to make certain that the community is apprised of every step along the way, through the hiring process, through every time that we make a sergeant, lieutenant hire, every time, and then once we totality finish hiring every one of our resource officers, but also with the expenditures. We want the community to see and have access to our entire budget, because that way they can understand and see where the millage money is going to, how it's going to be used, and how it's directly linked to protecting our children. So along the way, we'll continue to update the board of where we are financially, where we are with the hiring process, where we are with enforcement. One thing we're not going to do, if a student breaks, and I'm sorry to speak on your behalf, Chief, in my expectations, if a student breaks the law, then we are not going to, any way, shape, or form, not address that. So whether it's through a civil citation, whether that's through potential arrest, we will address it with the appropriate and right and correct consequences through this department. So I'll get monthly updates through Chief Wagner about where we are with that implementation, and that will continue to be used to identify how we break cycles of undesired behaviors with our children, and give us a better focus of what we need to do to infuse learning mechanisms in our school to help our children make the right choices.
And I think another segue on that is one of the Florida statutes is 1006.13, which specifically talks about how you can handle petty offenses in our schools, and that the law enforcement branch of the school district as well as administrators work collaboratively together in order to keep students in schools and not facing consequences through the legal system. So that is going to be a continuing collaborative effort from day one until infinity.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, well, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
As the superintendent mentioned, that information will continue to be pushed out through the district's website, oneclay.net, as well as our social media channels, so make sure to follow us, One Clay Schools. So next month, Superintendent Davis will be back in this seat asking questions to our new Executive Director of the Clay County Education Foundation, Michaela Buchanan, along with the board president. See you next time.